Hello, welcome to another teleprinter restoration episode. And yeah, Paul is with us as well. I'm Adrian, and we have Mike too. Hopefully, I've got everybody in shot okay. So last time, you know, we were making quite a bit of progress. There's stuff been typed and printed out. So there is a little bit of the carriage is a bit stiff in places. I mean, it does go back, but this first bit is a little bit stiff to get going, and then it starts to move fine. So we might have a look at that. And the manual line feed is a bit stiff, so maybe a bit more work on the carriage. What would be nice would be to get the, well, we had this Arduino that we were trying to get to talk to it a couple of episodes back, and Paul has been hard at work and has a box of tricks that he's going to be, I don't know, doing something. What are you doing with them, Paul?
Yeah, this should be the to create the interface between the ESP and the teleprinter's electromagnet.
Fantastic. And that will run at 600 volts, you say? Up to 600 volts? Up
to 600.
Don't think we're going to run it that high. Think we're mostly going to run it at like maybe up to 80, because that's what it's supposed to take. And speaking of up to 80 volts, that maybe lets us go around to Mike.
Okay.
And we can see what he's got and
so we've got
play around with.
an interface box. So this is going to control everything from the ESP32 to plug into the teletype.
So we'll be sticking the stuff Paul's got will go in here,
yeah,
somewhere.
And ideally the ESP32 as well.
Yep.
We've got a little USB adapter cable which will fit in the front panel, so we connect it to a computer.
Cool.
We're going to get a little ammeter on here to show the currents being transmitted from arc and space as well. And that's a little DC supply regulator which takes from a big power supply down to 80 volts, and then this gives us plus and minus 80 volts.
Superb.
And there's a connector on the back panel which will then go off to the teletype.
Right, nice.
So hopefully get that done today.
Superb. So yeah, that's today's plan. We should crack on with it. Well, while Mike and Paul get on with you know, boxing up kind of correct voltages for the data and getting the electronics sorted so we can try and do stuff programmatically, I've been trying out how well the loopback works, and I recorded a bunch of me hammering the keys, working through all of the keyboard. So I'll stick that in now, maybe while I kind of run whilst I'm talking to you. And so we've been trying all of the different, as I say, all the letters on the keyboard, running across just through each one, and basically it's all working quite nicely. Getting all the letters out, as you can see from the output from it. We've got the kind of it running through all of the characters on the keyboard, and then I did a nice, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog to try out my touch typing. The missing H was me kind of making a mistake in my touch typing. The H key, does work fine, as you can see from the first and as you might see from the message I've typed at the bottom, we have all the letters but no figs, because to switch to all of the kind of numbers and punctuation, you use the figs key, which switches mode, and then the letters key will switch back. And at the moment, the figs key doesn't seem to do anything. You can press it. Well, I mean, it makes the carriage spin lots, but doesn't result in any figures being typed. Basically, you press figs, and then you still just get the standard letters that you were getting beforehand. So that's the next thing that I'm going to be investigating. I still haven't fixed this problem, but I've made some progress. And you well, I guess, I mean, I suppose I've fixed in some ways, because as you can see, we've got some letters. We've got some letters, yeah, we've definitely got some letters. We've got some figures and some numbers. And basically I've worked out, so when when it switches from figures to letters, this little lever here kind of flicks up or down. I don't know if you can see that. There's kind of that little lever there, which will just flick up and down, and that rotates the sort of selectors kind of by one of these bars. And because basically these are letter figure, letter figure, letter figure, letter figure all the way around. So when you're in letters mode, it has one set of them lined up to do the letter. When you're in figures mode, that little lever switched the other way, flicks it around a bit, and then the figures are lined up. And yeah, it's mostly working. When you get into one or the other, it generally stays in that way, and you can get all of the characters and stuff. So what I'm going to do is, well, the reason I say I haven't fixed it yet is because it's actually it's not operating well enough to kind of flick. This is a little bit too stiff. Like, you can move it quite easily by hand, but when the machine's operating, it doesn't quite manage to kind of click it across from one to the other. And so you can kind of, or just sometimes, if you repeatedly hit figures, you can get it to flick across. I haven't managed to get it to flick back into letters after that without doing it manually. But I'm still, I'd like to, it'd be nice to print out the full character set. So I'm going to set up the camera just to film it in operation and go through a full alphabet and like numbers and figures thing to print all of them out, so we can see at least what all of the characters look like. So yeah, I shall do that next. Right, you should have seen this printing some stuff out, and as you can see, we have got the full full character set that it can print out, which is pretty cool. Now there's one more key that I'd like to demonstrate. Well, there's two more keys that do interesting things. So there is the, I don't know how well you can see that. Yep, the bell key, which needs an external connection to a bell. So we were looking at that a little bit, but don't think we're gonna get that working today. And then the other one, of course, is the best key ever, the Who Are You key. And now we worked out when we were dismantling, so you probably can't see it, but down in here there's a little drum that will rotate and basically select a bunch of keys, so that when you're at the other end, you can check that you're connected to the correct teleprinter by hitting the Who Are You key, and it should respond with the details that are on this kind of identification drum. Now ours doesn't seem to have any kind of useful identification on it, but if I switch on the teleprinter, I'm going to do a carriage return, and then if I hit the Who Are You key, we will see that it should answer us back. And of course it doesn't, because it's on camera. Which doesn't always seem to work, this answer back thing. I haven't fully worked out why. So let's see if I can get it to answer you back. Where are you? There we go. So yeah, I think when it tries to, at the end, it tries to switch back to letters, which sits into this kind of weird spin that we haven't worked out what the deal is with it. But yeah, it's nice. You can just kind of do that, and then it will just type at you. Now, I think that to get the this cam to flick properly might require us to dismantle this whole section that we've been trying not to dismantle because it looks complicated. So I think we're going to hold off on that for now, and maybe we'll see where Paul and Mike have got to see if there's more. Well, there should be a bit more stuff to report later on. Well, Paul has, while I've been playing around with the teleprinter, Paul has been doing all sorts of nice stuff with this little kind of couple of boards. So I think we should hand over to him and say, what have you been up to, Paul?
Wiring the ESP8266 to this H bridge at the top. This is the device that does all of the switching of the higher voltages, and this board is the bit that is in communication with the computer, and the whole thing just links the data through so that when this generates the character message, it toggles the input pins, and this does all of the function of switching in and out the higher voltage, which at the moment is only set to, should be set to 5-ish volts, but that's okay. It's just going to light a few resistors.
We have resistors, a couple of LEDs maybe as well.
Or one resistor and 2 LEDs, yeah. And the LEDs are wired in opposite directions. So depending on the polarity that is connected, one LED should light, and when we send a message we should see
blinking lights.
That's it.
Excellent. Right. So this is this ESP here is running kind of a variation of the code that I was writing, that I'd written the other week. Paul's updated it to the correct pins to drive the H bridge. When you first turn it on, it prints out a bunch of things you can kind of see from the serial output here, but now it's at the stage where if we type things up here, we can then send them. So when we click the send button, it will send that to the ESP. That will then toggle the right lines, which should toggle the other things, which should make the LEDs flash one way or the other.
Okay, we think we might have worked out why it didn't work last time. Before we were running the device on 3.3 volts, because it says in the datasheet, wide logic. Let's read exactly what it says. 3.3 volt to 15 volt compatible inputs. So we gave it 3.3 volts on the input as well as the logic.
I mean, that sounds sensible.
Yeah, it seems alright, but then just 2 lines. You see, wide driver supply voltage down to 6.5 volts. Did it mean the driver that drives the output, or did it mean the motor?
I mean, that's it. I'd have thought it was the, yeah, I'd have read that and gone, oh yeah, that'll be the high voltage side, goes down to 6.5 volts.
Well, we're going to try that. We're going to take that.
But, well, this is the driver, this is not the output side, is it? It's like, so what we think is that the input side needs to be driven at at above 6.5 volts, which is why it didn't do anything last time when we tried wiring it all up.
So they're talking about the driver that drives the thing that drives the solenoid.
Yeah.
That's it. So we're ready to roll.
Yeah.
We have everything wired up now separately. This side is the VCC, which is should be at least 6.5 volts as.
And it's at about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So that should be above 6.5.
And this side is for the output on the right. That is going to switch the LEDs backwards and forwards.
So that's why that's set quite low at the moment, because all we're doing right now is getting these two LEDs to light up. And so if this works, then we'll crank that right hand one up to 30 volts and connect it to this thing and see what happens. But you know, to begin with, blinking lights.
Blinking light is always nice. Ready to
yes.
power. So we want input.
Okay, nothing's blown up, that's good.
Finger hasn't burned. Output.
Okay.
No LEDs.
And no LEDs. What happens if you send some data to the board? Let me scoot this over a bit so that we can get it a little bit closer and see maybe. There we go. We got blinking lights. And they turn off at the end, which is interesting. I'd expect it to sit in mark, or yeah, it should sit in mark. So maybe there's something wrong with the code. Could be my code that's at fault, but we got blinking lights. So send another thing, Paul. And it is flicking between them, so that seems to be turning the power one way and then the other. So that's good. So maybe we should have a look at why it's not sitting in mark. It's probably not the end of the world, but we can do that and then work out how to how to wire it all up to the teleprinter. And next test might be seeing if it can actually make it print the right thing. It's getting late. We've been poking around with the H-bridge, and it's doing weird things with the LEDs. It was keeping the LEDs on, but the voltage was dropping loads and there's like no current going through it. So we spent a bit of time messing around with that. We haven't actually come to any decent conclusions about things, but we figured, you know, let's just wire it up and see what happens. And so we wired it up to see what happens, and it prints out some interesting things. So it should print Hello World at the start when it first powers up the Arduino. And obviously, as you can see, it's quite consistent in what it prints, but it's not the word hello. The word world seems to be all right. And after that, it seems to kind of settle down. And so a moment ago, Paul managed to send a bit of Joy Division, which is a good phrase to have there. I thought that was yeah, spot on. And that seemed to all come through okay. So let me bring this around so we can see us again. To finish things off, we thought we'd do, I suppose, one last test that we haven't done before, and show you sending some stuff from the computer and having it print out over here. And the thing that we haven't tested before is that this is on and running at the moment, and as you can see, it's quite quiet. Or as you can hear, probably more so. It's definitely not moving, it's quite quiet. That's because this weight has been lifted up and it's turned itself off with the auto power off. Now, that should mean that when Paul sends something to it, it will turn itself back on. So that's the kind of, you know, grand reveal where it will fail again and we'll look like idiots on camera once more. But that's what we're going to try next. So maybe, yeah, actually just let's go with a short transmission first, just to, yeah, send it, I don't know, whatever you like. So you're ready to send it, and maybe if I, yeah, show the thing, if we actually, maybe I should get it so I can get Paul in shot as well, so that we can do Paul hitting the thing and then the teleprinter springing to life. So whenever you are ready, Paul. Oh, it turned itself on and it typed some stuff, and U key wait, apparently.
Let's get the line in.
Oh,
press space.
yes, let me Is that? I think that's the right place for it. And UT Wakey. Is that what you typed? It should have been Wakey Wakey. Okay. So, well, it seems that the first character or so might get a bit garbled. I mean, that's believable. So I guess the next thing is for us to prove that it is print. And the reason we had to do the Y separately is that we keep forgetting that when you send something to the teleprinter, it kind of clocks it in, but it only prints it when the next character comes in. So if you don't send something at the end, you don't get the last character. And we forgot about that, and we had to send an extra character at the end. So, yeah, I guess, do you want to type some longer, more interesting phrase in, Paul, and I can show the serial monitor so people can see what we're going to send, and then we'll see if it prints it.
Phrase to send.
So that says, you should be able to read it, but it says, "Are you receiving my transmission over?" And have you got space at the end of it?
Yes.
So that we'll get the whole thing sent. So if I pan out now, maybe so we can see both machines, and then we'll see Paul hit the return key to do the send, and then I can focus on the teleprinter and we'll see it type things. Great. Okay, yeah. And if I go up, it says, "Are you receiving my transmission over?" There we go. We can send stuff from a computer to a teleprinter. We can't do characters yet, figures and stuff separately yet, but you know, that's pretty cool. I think that's a good place to call it a day, and yeah, join us again in a fortnight and see where we get to next.